power of small choices. In the village of Molding-on-Sea, everything was made of soft, colorful clay. The houses were pinched into shape, and the trees had thumbprint leaves. A young boy named Arlo lived there, and he often wondered when his big moment would arrive. He thought he needed a giant adventure to become the person he wanted to be. One sunny afternoon, Arlo was playing ball with his friend Finn. With a loud clack, the ball bounced off a stone and shattered a small clay pot on Mr. Kiln's porch. Finn gasped and pointed toward the woods. "Run, Arlo. No one saw us." Arlo's heart hammered like a drum. He could run, or he could stay. It was just a small pot, but it felt like a heavy choice. Arlo took a deep breath and walked to the door. When Mr. Kiln answered, Arlo told the truth. "I'm sorry, sir. I broke your pot. I'll help you fix it." The next morning, on his way to school, Arlo saw a girl named Micah sitting alone on a bench. She was new to the village and looked as small as a crumb. The other children were busy shouting and playing, but Arlo remembered how it felt to be the quiet one. He didn't perform a grand speech or save the day. He simply sat down next to her. "Do you like to draw?" he asked, handing her a stick. Together, they spent the morning sketching patterns in the soft clay ground. By the time the bell rang, Micah wasn't a stranger anymore. That evening, Arlo sat with his mother, Lena, in the kitchen. He had a new flute made of polished clay, but every time he tried to play, it sounded like a grumpy goose. "It's too hard," Arlo sighed, setting the flute down. "I'll never be good at this." "Big songs are just many small notes put together," Lena whispered. Arlo decided to try for just 5 minutes. Then 5 minutes more. He practiced one tiny scale until his fingers felt sure. It wasn't a concert, but it was a start. Weeks turned into months. One day, the village held a great festival. Finn ran up to Arlo, excited. "Today is the big moment, Arlo. This is when we show everyone who we are." Arlo looked around, expecting to feel different, but he just felt like himself. Mr. Kiln walked over and handed Arlo a beautiful new pot. "I kept this for you," he said, "because I knew I could trust you." Then Micah joined them, laughing as she showed Arlo a map she had drawn. Arlo realized that his life wasn't built on one big day, but on all the little ones. As the sun set over Molding-on-Sea, Arlo played a simple, clear tune on his flute. He realized that being honest, being kind, and trying hard weren't just things he did. They were who he was becoming. The power wasn't in the big moments, but in the small choices he made every single day. Courage without applause. In the whimsical town of Oakhaven, where the houses looked like colorful tea kettles, lived a girl named Pip. Pip was not the loudest child in school, nor was she the fastest. She was the kind of girl who noticed the things others missed, like the way moss grew in the shape of a star, or the soft whistle of the wind through the hollow logs. Today was the day of the Great Glitter Gala. Everyone in Oakhaven was buzzing with excitement. Barnaby, the town's most popular boy, was leading the preparations. He wore a cape made of shimmering ribbons and stood atop a giant, golden wagon. "The parade starts at noon," he shouted. "The grandest costume wins the golden trophy." Pip wanted to join the parade, but as she walked toward the town square, she passed the old sanctuary at the edge of the woods. A storm the night before had knocked down the fence and toppled the heavy stone bird baths. The little blue swallows were fluttering frantically, their home a mess of broken branches and spilled seeds. Just then, Barnaby and the rest of the children marched by. The music was loud, and the drums were beating. "Come on, Pip," Barnaby called out from his wagon. "Forget that old place. If you don't hurry, you'll miss your chance to be in the front row. Everyone will be watching." Pip looked at the glittering parade. Then she looked at the shivering birds. She knew that if she didn't fix the sanctuary now, the birds wouldn't have a safe place to rest for the night. "I can't come, Barnaby," Pip said quietly. Barnaby laughed and shook his head. "Suit yourself, but nobody is going to see you hiding back there." The afternoon was long and difficult. Pip rolled up her sleeves and began to lift the heavy stones. Her hands got muddy, and her hair became tangled with twigs. She didn't have a fancy cape or a cheering crowd. She only had the rhythmic thud-thud of the stones and the occasional bark from Thimble. High on the hill, the music of the gala reached its peak. Pip could hear the roar of the crowd and the sound of the judges announcing the winner. For a moment, she felt a pang of loneliness. It would have been nice to hear someone cheer for her too, but then a swallow landed on her shoulder and chirped a tiny silver note. Thimble helped as best as he could, dragging fallen branches away from the path with his teeth. Together, they mended the fence using old rope and sturdy sticks. By the time the sun began to dip behind the hills, the sanctuary was peaceful and safe once again. Pip's work was finished, but the town square was empty and silent. As Pip walked home, no one stopped to congratulate her. No one handed her a golden trophy or draped a ribbon around her neck. She was tired, dirty, and hungry. But as she looked at her reflection in a puddle, she didn't see a girl who had missed out. She saw someone who had done what was right, simply because it needed doing. That night, as Pip tucked herself into bed, she felt a warmth in her heart that was brighter than any glitter. She realized that courage doesn't always roar or wear a cape. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stand tall when you are all alone, knowing that the only applause you truly need is the quiet beat of your own heart. Learning from failure. In the heart of Pebbletown, where the ground was made of smooth stones and the houses looked like colorful lumps of dough, lived a small, enthusiastic builder named Burl. Burl loved making things more than anything else. Today, he had his biggest idea yet, the Super Swooper, a flying machine that would let him see over the tallest hills. He spread his blueprints across his workbench, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Burl worked for 3 whole days. He used bits of wire, scraps of bright blue fabric, and sticky sap to hold it all together. He hummed a happy tune as he tightened the last bolt. To Burl, the Super Swooper looked perfect. It was shiny, it was new, and it was ready to touch the clouds. He couldn't wait to show everyone what he had achieved. The entire town gathered at the top of Grassy Hill. Burl climbed into the seat, took a deep breath, and pedaled as fast as his legs could go. The Super Swooper rolled down the hill, picking up speed. It hopped once, it hopped twice, and then... crunch. The wings folded like paper, and the machine tumbled into a giant, prickly bramble bush. Burl sat in the middle of the mess, his heart feeling as heavy as a lead weight. "I'm a failure," Burl whispered, a single tear rolling down his round cheek. He felt like he should just pack up his tools and never build again. Just then, a shadow fell over him. It was Micah, the town's oldest clockmaker. She didn't look disappointed. She looked curious. She reached out a hand and helped Burl stand up among the wreckage of his dream. Micah didn't say it's okay or don't worry. Instead, she led Burl back to her own workshop. But she didn't show him her beautiful, ticking clocks. She led him to a dusty corner in the back, hidden behind a heavy velvet curtain. "This," Micah said with a proud smile, "is my gallery of goofs." Burl looked at a clock that was running backward. "I tried to make a timer for naps," Micah explained, "but I failed. Instead, I learned exactly how gears can reverse their direction. Without that mistake, I never would have learned how to make my famous rewind watch. Every broken thing on this shelf taught me a secret that a perfect machine never could." Burl went back to the bramble bush. This time, he didn't look at the Super Swooper as a disaster. He took out a magnifying glass and looked at the snapped wings. Oh, he realized, the wood was too thin to hold the wind, and the sap got dry and brittle in the sun. He started taking notes in a small book, his mind whirring faster than his gears ever had. Back in his workshop, Burl started again. He didn't try to build the exact same thing. He used thicker wood for the frame. He swapped the sap for sturdy metal bolts. He even added a set of springs he found in an old sofa. Every time he felt frustrated, he remembered Micah's gallery of goofs and smiled. A mistake wasn't a stop sign. It was just a different way to learn. The second launch wasn't perfect either. The Super Swooper didn't fly over the hills. Instead, it caught a breeze and glided gracefully down to the town pond, landing with a soft splash. It didn't soar, but it floated beautifully. Micah stood on the shore, clapping her hands. Burl realized he hadn't built a plane. He had accidentally invented the world's first sail sled. Burl realized that being wise didn't mean never making mistakes. It meant being brave enough to fail and smart enough to ask why as he picked up the pieces. He renamed his workshop Burl's Lab of Lessons. He knew that as long as he kept trying, he would never truly fail. He was growing stronger, one goof at a time. The Gift of Patience. In the village of Potter's Peak, where the houses looked like lumpy teapots and the trees were made of twisted wire, lived two friends named Kip and Alara. One morning, the village elder called them to the great kiln. He held two tiny, shimmering silver seeds in his weathered hands. "These are Everglow seeds," the elder whispered. "They hold the light of the stars, but only if you have the heart to wait for them." Kip was always moving. He hopped from foot to foot, his hands twitching with energy. Ilara, however, liked to watch the clouds drift by. The elder gave them each a ceramic pot and a bag of rich, dark soil. "Remember," the elder cautioned, "the more you wait, the brighter its fate. Do not rush the roots, or the light will fade." As soon as they got home, Kip began to work. He shoved his seed deep into the dirt and hammered it down with a spoon. "Grow, grow, grow," he chanted. He watered it until the pot was a swamp. He peeked under the dirt every 5 minutes, poking the seed with a stick to see if it had started doing anything interesting yet. Alara chose a spot on her windowsill where the morning sun felt like a warm hug. She tucked her seed just under the surface, whispered a soft sleep well, and gave it a single spoonful of water. She knew the seed was busy doing secret work beneath the soil, and she didn't want to disturb its dreams. By the third day, Kip was frustrated. "It's too slow," he grumbled. He ran to the village chemist and bought a bottle of Turbo Grow tonic. He poured the whole purple liquid into his pot. Suddenly, the earth heaved. A thick, jagged gray vine shot out of the dirt, growing so fast it rattled the table. But the vine was dull, brittle, and covered in sharp thorns. Alara came over to visit and gasped when she saw Kip's gray vine. It was tall, but it looked tired. "Kip, it looks like it's hurting," she said softly. Kip frowned, trying to pull on one of the branches to make it bloom. Snap! A piece of the vine broke off in his hand, turning to dry dust. He looked at his hands, feeling a heavy knot of regret in his stomach. Back at Alara's house, nothing had sprouted yet. She sat by her pot every day, reading stories to the dirt and keeping the soil just damp enough. Her friends teased her. "Alara, you're growing a pot of nothing." But Alara just smiled. She felt a strange, quiet humming coming from the ceramic. She knew the roots were growing deep and strong, anchoring themselves for the beauty to come. Kip realized his mistake. He cleared away the broken gray vine and looked at his empty pot. "I rushed it," he sighed. He went to Alara, and she shared a small piece of her patience with him. She helped him clean his pot and gave him a fresh seed she had found in the forest. "This time," Kip whispered, "I will let you take your time." Weeks passed. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the wire trees, Alara's pot began to pulse with a soft, golden light. A tiny green shoot, as bright as an emerald, unfurled a single leaf. Then another, slowly, gracefully. A flower bloomed. It didn't look like a normal flower. It looked like a living lantern, casting a warm, steady glow that filled the entire room. Kip sat beside her, watching the glow. His own new seed hadn't sprouted yet, but he didn't mind. He wasn't poking the dirt or pouring tonics. He was simply enjoying the light from Alara's flower. He knew that one day his own light would come, and it would be worth every second of the wait. The gift of patience was the most beautiful bloom of all. Kindness is strength. In the village of Grit Valley, everything was made of the hardest, driest clay. The people there believed that to be strong, you had to be stiff and unyielding. Mal was different. He kept his clay damp and flexible. While others practiced standing still like statues, Mal spent his days mending broken fences and smoothing out the bumpy paths so others wouldn't trip. Mal's friend, Sira, tried her best to follow the village rules. She carried heavy stones and never complained, even when her shoulders began to show tiny, jagged cracks. "You should rest, Sarah," Mal whispered, offering her a damp cloth. But Sira shook her head. "In Grit Valley, rest is for the weak, Mal. We must be like the mountains." The leader of the hardest hearts was a boy named Flint. He was made of dark, kiln-fired clay that never bent. Flint spent every afternoon building a massive wall around his house. He told everyone that he didn't need friends or help because his strength came from being totally alone and totally solid. One afternoon, Mal noticed a deep fissure forming at the base of Flint's great wall. He hurried over to warn him. "Flint, the ground is shifting. If you don't soften the base, the whole thing will tumble." Mal reached out, offering a handful of soft, moist river clay to patch the gap. Flint let out a loud, hollow laugh that echoed through the valley. "Keep your mud, Mal. Only the weak need things to be soft. My wall is perfect, because it is hard." He kicked a pebble toward Mal and turned his back, ignoring the warning and the small hissing sound of the wind entering the crack. Suddenly, the earth began to rumble. A tremor shook Grit Valley. Because the houses and walls were so stiff, they couldn't wiggle with the ground. Flint's wall began to groan and snap. He tried to hold the bricks together, but he was too rigid to move quickly. With a deafening crack, the wall gave way, trapping Flint's legs beneath a heavy slab. The other villagers stayed back, afraid of the falling debris. "He's the strongest," they whispered. "He'll pull himself out." But Mal didn't wait. He knew that even the hardest stone could break, and that being strong meant showing up when things were falling apart. He grabbed his bucket of water and ran toward the dust cloud. Mal reached the ruins and saw Flint pinned down. Flint's clay skin was starting to shatter from the pressure. "Don't move," Mal said gently. He didn't try to lift the slab with brute force. Instead, he poured water around Flint's trapped legs, turning the dry earth into slippery, forgiving mud. He reached out his hand. With the ground softened, Mal was able to slide Flint out from under the heavy weight. Flint sat up, dusting himself off. He looked at his hands, then at Mal. "I thought kindness was just for people who couldn't handle the grit," Flint muttered, his voice shaking. "But you came into the danger while I was just stuck." From that day on, Grit Valley began to change. Mal and Flint worked together to build a new kind of community center, one with a garden that needed constant care and water. Flint realized that it took more strength to be open and helpful than it did to be a wall. He learned that while stone can break, a heart that bends stays whole. Using your voice wisely. In the heart of the Glimmerwoods lived Koro, a bright blue bird with a voice like a silver bell. Koro loved his voice more than anything. He sang at sunrise, chirped at noon, and chattered all through the night. To Koro, every thought was a song that simply had to be shared with the world, no matter who was listening or what they were doing. One morning, Koro saw Nuna the squirrel trying to leap from a high branch to a lower one. Nuna missed and tumbled into a pile of soft moss. Koro flew down immediately. "You are a very clumsy jumper, Nuna," he chirped loudly. "You looked like a falling potato." "It is the truth, isn't it?" Koro felt proud of himself for being honest. Nuna's ears drooped, and her fluffy tail stopped twitching. She didn't say anything. She just gathered her acorns and scurried away into the hollow of an oak tree. Koro tilted his head, confused. He had only told the truth. Why did the woods suddenly feel so quiet and cold? He didn't understand why his honesty had made a friend go away. Truth is a powerful tool, Koro, but even the sharpest tool needs a steady hand. A slow, deep voice rumbled. It was Bastian the tortoise, the oldest soul in the Glimmerwoods. Bastian moved with great care, his heavy shell decorated with patterns of ancient moss. He had watched the exchange from under a fern and beckoned Koro to sit with him. Bastian explained that before a word leaves the beak, it should pass through 3 secret gates. If a word cannot pass all 3, it is often better left in the heart, Bastian said. Koro flapped his wings. 3 gates? That sounds like a lot of waiting. What are they, Bastian? The old tortoise smiled and began to draw in the soft clay soil with his claw. The first gate is the gate of truth, Bastian said. Is what you are saying actually true, or is it just a guess? Honesty is the foundation of everything. Koro nodded eagerly. I passed that one. Nuna really did fall. He felt a bit better, thinking he had already mastered the first step of the wise old tortoise's lesson. But then comes the second gate, Bastian continued, his eyes twinkling. The gate of kindness. Even if a word is true, is it said with love? Does it help the person? Or does it only make you feel important? Koro went very still. He remembered Nuna's drooping ears. His words had been true, but they certainly hadn't been kind. The final gate, Bastian whispered, is the gate of necessity. Is it necessary to say this right now? Sometimes, silence is the most powerful song of all. Silence gives others space to grow and room to breathe. Koro looked at the 3rd archway. He realized that Nuna already knew she had fallen. She didn't need him to shout it to the whole forest. Later that afternoon, Koro saw Nuna again. She was practicing her jumps on a much lower branch, looking nervous. A sharp comment about her being scared bubbled up in Koro's throat. He stopped. Is it true? Yes. Is it kind? No. Is it necessary? Not at all. Koro took a deep breath and stayed silent, watching her from the leaves. When Nuna finally made the jump perfectly, Koro didn't shout about her past mistakes. Instead, he flew down and sang a soft, golden melody of celebration. Great job, Nuna, he said softly. This time, Nuna's tail twitched happily, and she shared a piece of her sweetest berry with him. Koro realized that his voice was much more beautiful when he used it wisely.